Hello and welcome to Building Meaningful Relationships During Community Research to Inform Media Development. My name is Jennifer Borland, and I'm here today presenting on behalf of my team members, including Camelia Sanford-Dolly, Nisa Kurtman, Cecilia Garibay, and Bryce Becker. In today's presentation, we'll be talking a little bit about our project, as well as our process for creating strategies for relationship building and the relationship building lessons that we've learned thus far. Mashopolis is the working title for the show and its related programming. It's part of a 5-year project funded through the U.S. Department of Education's Ready to Learn program. Twin Cities PBS, or TPT, serves as the project lead and is a part of a research consortium that also includes members from Rockman et al. Cooperative, the Garibay Group, and Turk. The project seeks to foster executive function skills and self-regulation skills, or coping strategies, and in doing so lay the groundwork for future career success. Specifically, the project will focus on career exposure, self-regulation, and the resulting executive function skills that are at the intersection of career exposure and self-regulation skills. To accomplish the aforementioned goals, a variety of media resources are being developed, including an animated television show, hands-on activities, and digital games and apps. These resources will be incorporated as part of at-home and on-site programming for children and families that are designed to support connected and intergenerational learning. Specifically, the Mashopolis programs will seek to serve 5 to 8-year-old children from self-identified racially and ethnically diverse and lower income families, and at-home programming will be conducted in cooperation with parents and other caregivers that will ultimately include housing insecure families as part of an innovation program. Children's programming will also be offered in a variety of informal learning environments, including out-of-school care programs, community centers, libraries, and museums, and facilitated by educators at those sites. Here's the challenge. As all of these media resources and programs are being iteratively developed and modified to better meet the needs of children, families, and informal educators and community organizations, we have been seeking to understand perceptions about executive function skills, coping strategies, and career exposure, as well as prior experiences with digital media and on-site programming. However, the process of gathering such information from community organizations and families could sometimes feel brief or transactional rather than sustained and meaningful. So where are we now in terms of addressing that challenge? We know that it's a long road, and at just under 2 years into the project, we know that we have a long way to go. This program seeks to highlight the project team's approaches to building strong and mutually beneficial partnerships between researchers, community-based organizations, educators, and families, and to share some of the lessons that we've learned along the way that have impacted the project's media and program development. All of our team members recognize the importance of seeking input from community members at the onset of this project. So this first point is more of a starting point rather than something that we came to learn through our efforts thus far, but we felt that it was important to highlight nonetheless. That being the need to center community members' voices before the media development process begins. We conducted a national needs assessment with caregivers of 5 to 8-year-old children and informal educators at organizations that serve BIPOC and low-income communities. The needs assessment was designed to ensure that community members' experiences and perspectives were driving the development of Mashopolis media and programming. We conducted online surveys, individual interviews, and group discussions. These mixed methods provided rich information about what different groups thought about children's developing executive function skills, coping strategies, and career awareness, as well as the use of digital media and on-site programming for children and families at community organizations. The needs assessment was also an important first step in establishing trust with partners, indicating that their voices are being valued from the outset before any digital and transmedia content was developed. We ultimately learned that caregivers felt that responding well to disappointments and managing emotions were the hardest skills for their children to develop. On the other hand, they felt that it was important for children to learn to identify emotions, get along with others, and stop and think before doing or saying something. Caregivers also shared what they already do or say when their children are upset. For example, take your time or take a deep breath. Let's talk about what happened. They told us their children needed multiple exposures to a coping strategy and opportunities to practice it before they engage the strategy independently. Thus, the kinds of coping strategies that caregivers mentioned will be emphasized in Nashopolis and incorporated in the digital and hands-on media throughout multiple means of engagement, representation, and action. By approaching our partners first with a needs assessment to seek input from community partners, we were able to discover their needs as well as learn more about their current strategies. And then, in turn, integrate what we learned as a central focus in our approach to executive function and coping strategy content for both media and outreach programming from the outset. As we proceed, building meaningful relationships with community organizations with whom we plan to foster long-term development and research partnerships will enable our team to create programming that not only meets communities' needs and desires, but also reflects and is inclusive of current cultural practices and norms. The goal is to intentionally build relationships in which organizational partners know they are heard and valued as collaborators, and to avoid contributions that feel one-sided. The second lesson or key element in our process was to allow for evolution and pivots. We planned to convene advisory groups of children, their caregivers, and informal educators. However, recruitment for a long-term commitment where the broader set of activities and timeline were uncertain proved especially difficult during a pandemic. So the project team took a step back and reflected on what kinds of research experiences we wanted stakeholders to have and how often these interactions should take place in order to be meaningful to participants and researchers alike. This led to a series of rich conversations around how to build sustained relationships with families and community organizations over time. From these initial discussions, the research team is developing a set of relationship building guidelines to inform all subsequent interactions and research activities with families and community organizations. At the same time, TPT's Ready to Learn team was participating in a larger effort to understand how principles of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility could be infused throughout all development processes. The team convened an equity council, including advocates and experts in representation and inclusion in children's media. The council's purpose was to support the production of idea-aligned educational content, in part by developing a guiding framework, which is comprised of 10 equity principles organized into pre-production, production, and post-production stages, and further delineated into concrete action steps. Originally intended to guide content and curriculum development, these principles will also be integrated into the relationship building framework to ensure that the community research partnerships being developed are culturally responsive and personally relevant. One of the key things that emerged from some of the early equity-focused efforts was the need to provide feedback to our community partners and the realization that we'd likely need to message our findings differently to meet the needs and interests of different audiences. We talked with community partners about whether and how they want the project team to communicate with them about ongoing research and findings, and their answers varied widely. Some wanted more regular detailed project updates, while others appreciated a quick text message. Some wanted a customized letter or content for newsletters that summarized main takeaways. And rather than hearing findings in isolation, many partners preferred to know how findings would be used to inform subsequent media development. Given the range of communication modes and content, the research team reconfigured its initial findings report and is continuously circling back to caregivers and informal educators to test out different ways of meaning making around findings. This process is also mirrored in the formative development of the project's media content. This will ultimately enable us to design a series of resources that allow individuals to meaningfully engage with the data and insights that their partnerships generate. And by being responsive to partners' preferences, we seek to strengthen emerging relationships and can, in turn, create more responsive educational media content thanks to iterative feedback and opportunities to clarify and recontextualize meaning making around the findings thus far. The relationship building process is ongoing and meant to evolve over the life of the project and beyond. Thus, the fourth tenet of our relationship building process is think long-term. Rome wasn't built in a day, nor should we expect that strong and lasting partnerships can be built quickly. As we develop our framework and are amassing tools and resources that can help to sustain our partnerships, we recognize that media development must be positioned as an ongoing long-term collaboration. These sustained interactions are crucial when creating digital media that connects children's learning across different contexts, because they help us better understand the degree to which tech-infused experiences are accessible and integrated into families' everyday lives in meaningful ways. To support this effort, the team is developing ways to incorporate internal relationship quality checks to identify key indicators of progress or lack thereof, and help us better course correct as needed. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your reflections on our process and what strategies you're using on your own projects to engage in relationship building. Feel free to keep the conversation going by commenting below. Thank you.